I have learned not to rule anything out, but I think that you've kind of reached a point where if you've kind of hit the peak of as far as value as you can get out before you start getting diminishing returns, maybe 10, 20 years from now, somebody says, there's like right now you look around and there's really not as many brands available who will add, value to your package. But maybe 20 years from now, you're like, I don't know, this school could probably bring in a little more than this one that we've had since the beginning of the conference. And maybe they make that move. But I just don't know legally what would even go into that. Like, can you kick a school out of the conference? Has it ever been done? Like, I know schools have left conferences. Okay, so
didn't Temple get kicked out
of the MAC
or UConn? One of the two.
I think UConn, Temple got kicked out of the MAC. But they were only there for like a couple years, though, right?
Yeah. For performance reasons is the real key to this question, though. Like, Big 12 could have booted Baylor, for like facilitating a huge rape scandal, but they didn't. Performance-wise, it's very tough, I think, and somebody needs to take losses. Like, they're cool with Vanderbilt hanging around. Sorry, Barton. Like Mississippi State, like somebody has to take these L's.
What do you think,
I don't
Dave?
think it's going to happen.
I'll be surprised. No, I mean, nothing would surprise me or shock me, I would say. I think everything's on the table. I don't think it would happen. I think that's a lot of history and tradition, but we're also seeing USC and UCLA in the Big Ten. Like, I would actually prefer that it does happen. Like, if I was proposing a system, I think an idea of like a relegation would be fantastic. I had a little bit of a conversation this morning with Rick Neuheisel, our colleague here at CBS. And if you look at the money the NFL is pulling in, it's like $10 billion a year. And that was from all the different networks. That the college football is still a bargain for the networks that are paying it seems like, wow, the Big Ten's getting $1 billion. It's still a pretty good bargain comparatively to what, networks are having to pay for NFL rights fees. And if you could get everybody like with a commissioner in charge who was looking out for the best interest of everybody, you could salvage a lot of the problems and a lot of the complaints that the fans have. But because you don't, I think it opens up the door to teams being kicked out of conferences, and maybe just for lack of performance, as opposed to having a relegation system that was a true system that was set up where, all right, everyone knows the deal. Everyone knows what's going to happen. If you are Rutgers and you have another 1 or 2 win season, you're going to be kicked out to the MAC, and the MAC champion is going to be bounced up to the Big Ten. I don't think it happens, but I just think I think college football, I don't know. I think college football has done itself a disservice by not having any one person, entity, group look out for the whole. And so now we have this incredibly competitive environment where people are backstabbing each other and keeping moves away from each other, as opposed to if it was done collectively, I think they could gain more financially as a group moving all together with a plan in place.
The Sewanee Tigers were once a member of the Southeastern Conference. This was back from 1932 to 1940. Now, the issue was, they were a founding member of the SEC, the Sewanee Tigers, University of the South. But they never won a conference football game in 8 years of SEC membership, and they were shut out 26 times in 37 games and outscored by a combined total of, wait for it, 1,163 to 84. So it was actually Sewanee that decided to pull out. They were not booted
there we go.
They were not booted for performance reasons, but the university made a decision when they had a change of leadership that they were going to be able to get out. I agree with you that kicking out a member school does not seem likely to me. I even go back to the idea that these are, university presidents at the top of some of these boards, and they're all friends with each other. Yeah. And in the same way that coaches look out for coaches, a lot of these high-level administrator academic types look out for each other because they're all going to be changing jobs and going to each other's schools. And if all of them team up against one, then that is going to create bad blood that is going to be bad for the entire ecosystem. However, I do foresee a future where schools like a Vanderbilt, maybe even schools like in the ACC, maybe even schools in the Pac-12 would look at the future of college football as it's being played and decide that they are going to choose not to be a part of it. That based on whatever
can I make
a
prediction of who the first school to do that will be?
Sure.
Cal.
I was going to say Stanford. So yeah,
y'all are on the same line here. As we continue to theorize about what the future of college football is, if it includes heavy investment that will involve paying players, if it involves a limitless spending in terms of coaches and in terms of the way that you are pumping money into these programs, we can already look at the athletic department budgets all across Division I and see massive disparities even at the Power 5 level. If you just take the restrictor plate off, there are going to be some universities that might be making either the philosophical or business decision to not play keep up. So I don't see a kicking out a team, but if the rules and the setup of the future of college football is such that it caters to an Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and teams that want to try to keep up with them, then there could be Power 5 schools that decide that they don't want to be a part of it.
But I think the difference is I could see a school like Cal or Stanford, a school that's left behind doing it. I don't think any school in the Big Ten or SEC is going to willingly leave the conference once that money starts rolling in.
Right. Yeah. $100 million check a year. We're going to go ahead and pass on that because we don't believe in the philosophy. I don't buy that.
I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates are still in Major League Baseball, so somebody could be the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we'll take the money and we just won't pay anybody anyway.
Yeah, you could see. I agree with you. I think on the Big Ten, SEC stuff, because look, I mean, not to pick on Vandy, but they could that money allows them to continue to be just extremely good at baseball if they choose. Or some other sports. I know Vandy, values baseball a whole lot. In the ACC, though, I think some of these schools have an interesting decision to make. Do they want to go ahead and drop down now? There's no future for Boston College or Syracuse to continue to try to compete at the very highest level. You can argue that they're not really trying to do that now, but would they want to go and form another division, sort of an Ivy League 2 with maybe them, Cuse, Stanford, other really good academic schools that have no real interest in playing and doing what it takes to play college football at the highest level? Or do they want to collect these huge checks for another 13 years and then decide to do it? If they decide that they're kind of out now, that's where you could have some change in the ACC, because there's definitely schools at the top who want to get out. I know they're proposing right now unequal revenue sharing. I think you got a lot of schools pushing for that. That's, I guess, a way, but I who in the Big Ten cares about academics enough to not play at that high level? I guess Northwestern would be the only one, and yet they just built a Taj Mahal facility by Tom's house. So
it's very nice.
That's pretty close to you, right?
It's about 20 minutes north. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Northwestern
it's
would
right
be
by Medill.
Hey, actually, Northwestern was a place where the players union started.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They quashed that pretty quick.
Oh, that's true. But I was just trying to think about it, fostering an environment of player empowerment. They at least they didn't bench everybody who had APU written on their little sleeves or whatever. But I could see Northwestern plowing ahead. I think that, like you mentioned, Danny, Vanderbilt, even for just a prestige play, would want to be able to stay in and try to compete at the highest level, even if the rules change just a little bit. So very interesting question, but yeah, I don't see I think Missouri's not going to get kicked out of the SEC. No, that's a great opportunity for SEC schools to be able to get into the St. Louis area and be able to go and recruit there and be able to go get a win when Missouri's down. But the Alpha Nerd is coming for you. Don't think that's a guaranteed W.